The young Octavian, adopted heir of Julius Caesar, seemed destined for a secondary role in a Rome tumultuous with civil wars. But beneath the surface of an inexperienced youth lay a formidable strategist, a master of politics and warfare who would soon become the most powerful man in the world. How did he manage to turn the chaos of Rome into his personal empire? The answer lies in the alliances he forged, the betrayals he orchestrated, and the battles he carefully chose. Octavian wasn't just Julius Caesar's heir. He exceeded all expectations, taking total control of Rome and transforming into Augustus, the first emperor. In this video, we will explore every step of this impressive rise, from his most subtle political maneuvers to the military strikes that secured his place as the Lord of Rome. Get ready to understand how Octavian transformed the fate of Rome and his own in a story of ambition, power, and conquest. Octavian, born Gaius Octavius, entered the political world of Rome at a time of immense turbulence. Adopted posthumously by Julius Caesar, his great uncle, he suddenly found himself thrust into a position of significant power. At just 18 years old, many considered him inexperienced and ill-equipped to navigate the dangerous waters of Roman politics. Yet, beneath his youth and perceived naivety, Octavian possessed a sharp political mind, capable of strategic calculation. His first moves were cautious, but decisive. He wisely gathered support from Caesar's loyalists, presenting himself as the rightful heir to the fallen dictator's legacy. Despite the looming threat of civil war, Octavian's initial actions were surprisingly diplomatic. Instead of immediately seeking confrontation, he consolidated power by playing the part of the dutiful son, honoring Caesar's memory and gaining the loyalty of his soldiers. Key to his early success was his relationship with the legions. Understanding the importance of military backing in Roman politics, Octavian used the funds left in Caesar's will to secure the loyalty of several legions, offering them land and payment in return for their service. This act of generosity made him a credible figure in the eyes of Rome's veterans, many of whom were wary of the chaos that could follow Caesar's assassination. Octavian's first true test came when he faced off against the Senate and Mark Antony, one of Caesar's closest generals. Antony, who had assumed a central role following Caesar's death, underestimated the young heir. In a move that would define his early political life, Octavian aligned himself with the Senate against Antony. By doing so, he positioned himself as a champion of Republican ideals, even though his ambitions reached far beyond them. His ability to shift allegiances when needed became a hallmark of his rise to power, and this early opposition to Antony showed his capacity for political agility. Over time, Octavian's political maneuvers gained him the support of key Roman figures, including Cicero, who saw in him an opportunity to defeat Antony and restore balance to the Republic. Cicero's backing was instrumental, as it provided Octavian with legitimacy in the eyes of the Senate, despite his youth and inexperience. Octavian, however, was not one to remain indebted to others for long. Even as he worked with the Senate, he was already planning his next steps, aware that true power lay not in alliances with politicians, but in control of the legions and the people of Rome. By 43 BCE, Octavian had cemented his status as a rising force in Roman politics. His successful campaigns against Antony's forces in northern Italy showed that he was more than just a figurehead for Caesar's legacy. He was a shrewd operator, capable of military command and strategic thinking. As his influence grew, so did his ambition, and he knew that the next phase of his plan would require him to build not just alliances, but a coalition of powers strong enough to challenge anyone who stood in his way. The formation of the Second Triumvirate in 43 BC marked a pivotal moment in Octavian's ascent. The alliance, composed of Octavian, Mark Antony, and Marcus Lepidus, was forged out of necessity more than trust. Despite their mutual mistrust, they united to eliminate their common enemies, the Senate's liberators, led by Brutus and Cassius, the assassins of Julius Caesar. This pragmatic approach to power-sharing allowed Octavian to eliminate opposition while positioning himself for future dominance. The triumvirate was not built to last, but for Octavian, it was a temporary calculated step toward consolidating his rule. The triumvirate wasted no time in solidifying its authority through a series of brutal proscriptions. Thousands of political rivals and enemies were executed or exiled, with the triumvirs seizing their wealth to fund the ongoing wars. This ruthless purge helped Octavian eliminate potential threats while consolidating his influence in Rome. In a chilling move, even Cicero, once an ally, was targeted for elimination. The execution of Cicero was not only a political statement, but a sign that Octavian would stop at nothing to secure his power, even if it meant turning on former supporters. Despite this grim start, the triumvirate's immediate focus shifted to defeating Brutus and Cassius, who had fled to the east to amass forces. The Battle of Philippi in 42 BCE was the decisive moment that ensured the triumvirate's grip on Rome. Though Antony's forces played a crucial role in the victory, Octavian's political and military prowess grew as a result. With the liberators defeated, Rome was once again in the hands of a select few, but Octavian's vision extended far beyond this temporary power-sharing arrangement. As the years passed, tensions between the triumvirs grew. Lepidus was gradually sidelined, leaving Octavian and Antony as the two dominant figures in Roman politics. However, while Antony became increasingly entangled with Cleopatra in Egypt, Octavian remained focused on Rome. Antony's relationship with Cleopatra became a major point of contention, as Octavian used it to paint him as a traitor to Rome, enthralled by the seductions of the East. It was a brilliant political strategy designed to turn public opinion in his favor, framing Antony as a man more concerned with foreign interests than the welfare of Rome. In 32 BCE, the situation reached a boiling point. Octavian declared war, not on Antony directly, but on Cleopatra, positioning himself as the defender of Roman values against foreign corruption. This allowed him to rally support in the Senate and from the people of Rome, while portraying Antony as a misguided ally of the Egyptian queen. The stage was set for the final showdown between the two most powerful men in the Roman world. By 31 BCE, Octavian had masterfully positioned himself as the defender of Rome, both politically and morally, against the supposed threat posed by Mark Antony and Cleopatra. The Battle of Actium became the critical turning point in this struggle. On September 2nd of that year, the forces of Antony and Cleopatra faced Octavian's fleet, commanded by Agrippa, in a decisive naval clash. While Antony and Cleopatra's forces were formidable, Octavian's strategic advantage lay in both superior naval tactics and a carefully crafted propaganda campaign that framed Antony as a traitor to Rome. The result was a resounding victory for Octavian, with Antony and Cleopatra fleeing to Egypt, their forces shattered. Following the victory at Actium, Octavian wasted no time in consolidating his control over the Roman world. Antony and Cleopatra's subsequent suicides in Alexandria removed the last major threats to his dominance. By the time Octavian returned to Rome, he was hailed as a hero and the savior of the Republic, even though his ultimate goal was far more personal and ambitious. Rather than dismantling the Roman system, he began reshaping it to serve his purposes, slowly dismantling the old republican framework while keeping its facade intact. The Senate, cowed by his military and political power, granted him numerous honors, further solidifying his authority. Octavian's strategy in consolidating his rule was remarkably subtle. Instead of declaring himself dictator, like Julius Caesar, he portrayed himself as the princeps, or first citizen of Rome. This title allowed him to maintain the appearance of republican governance while holding near absolute power. He understood the delicate balance between authority and perception. Romans still clung to the ideals of the Republic, and any overt displays of tyranny could provoke rebellion. By keeping traditional institutions in place, but filling them with his loyal supporters, Octavian gradually centralized control without appearing to overthrow the system entirely. In addition to political reform, Octavian knew that securing the loyalty of the military was essential to his long-term success. He implemented a series of military reforms, ensuring that the legions were loyal to him, rather than the Senate or individual commanders. Veterans were rewarded with land and wealth, and the Praetorian Guard, his personal bodyguard, became a powerful tool for maintaining order in Rome. by controlling both the political apparatus and the military. Octavian had created a system where his power was unassailable, but it was cloaked in the guise of restoring the Republic. Octavian's consolidation of power was not achieved through brute force alone. His political acumen, coupled with his ability to maintain the loyalty of the military and the people, ensured that by the late 20s BCE, there was no viable opposition to his rule. As the Senate continued to bestow honors upon him, including the title Augustus in 27 BC, Octavian completed his transformation from a young, inexperienced heir to the uncontested ruler of the Roman world. This transformation was as much a psychological shift for the Roman people as it was a political one. Augustus became synonymous with stability, peace, and prosperity, a new era for Rome. The year 27 BCE is often regarded as the formal beginning of the Roman Empire, although Octavian, now Augustus, carefully avoided using imperial language. Instead, he presented his reign as the restoration of peace and the Republic. This narrative allowed him to maintain support among Rome's aristocracy and its people, who had grown weary of decades of civil war and political upheaval. Augustus skillfully presented himself as the guardian of Roman traditions, while behind the scenes, he wielded almost total control over the state's military, political, and economic machinery. Under Augustus' rule, Rome entered what became known as the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity that would last for over 2 centuries. Augustus initiated a wide range of reforms that revitalized the city of Rome and the empire as a whole. He restored temples, reformed the tax system, and created a professional standing army, which reduced the chances of future civil wars. These achievements cemented his reputation as a leader who not only brought peace, but actively improved the lives of Roman citizens. He also embarked on a vast building program, famously claiming that he found Rome a city of bricks and left it a city of marble. One of Augustus' most important reforms was the restructuring of Rome's provinces. He divided the empire into senatorial and imperial provinces, with the more stable and prosperous regions under the Senate's nominal control, while Augustus himself controlled the more volatile and strategically important areas. This division allowed Augustus to maintain control of the military legions stationed in these key provinces, further solidifying his grip on power. The Senate, reduced in influence but still in existence, functioned largely as an advisory body, giving the illusion of shared governance, while the true power resided with Augustus and his imperial system. Though Augustus reigned with relative stability, his consolidation of power did not come without resistance. Early in his rule, there were whispers of discontent among the aristocracy, but these were quickly quelled through a combination of political maneuvering and, when necessary, repression. Augustus also understood the importance of managing his image. Through carefully curated public appearances, statues, and coinage that depicted him as a youthful, divine figure, he cultivated a persona that was both approachable and godlike. This image management played a crucial role in his long-lasting popularity and helped cement his legacy as Rome's first emperor. As Augustus aged, the question of succession loomed large. He had no sons of his own, and much of his later reign was spent grooming potential heirs. His stepson Tiberius would eventually succeed him, but Augustus' true legacy was not just in the man who followed him. It was in the system of governance he had created. By the time of his death in 14 CE, Augustus had fundamentally transformed Rome from a republic constantly on the brink of collapse into a stable autocratic empire, whose influence would stretch across centuries.